Yo, how are you doing, folks? Welcome to episode 117 of the Simpa Life Podcast. How are you doing? I am not going to mention the weather. I watched a couple of episodes yesterday and noticed that I think I've commented on the weather for the past 4 or 5 episodes in a row. I'm not going to bore you with that chat. I am sorry. I live in the northeast of England. When we see the sun, we're like fucking prehistoric humans. You know, we just want to fucking dance around it and worship it, really. So, yeah. I've had some sun, got some colour. Look, I'm happy now. We're not going to talk about it, even though ironically we're talking about the weather right now, but whatever. Anyway, moving on, because I think most of the news stories and topics that I was going to kind of mention in the preamble, I think today's guest will be a wonderful individual to cover them. We've just had some of the preamble, so yeah, you're in for a treat here, folks. I'm looking forward to this. So today's guest, without further ado, is a lifelong cannabis advocate, educator, and medicinal consumer. They're a staff writer at Sensi Seeds, an independent breeder at ILGM, which is ilovegrowingmarijuana.com. For all you curious people out there that hate me rattling off these anagrams constantly. The creative director of the Dope History Podcast and the host of the Future Cannabis Project, as well as the founder of Twin Peaks Cannabis. They are Chad Westport. How are you doing, brother?
Good. Awesome. Thank you for having me. That was a wonderful introduction. I appreciate it.
I'm glad, like I said, I'm glad I got through it. My notes are a bit scrambled today. It's we're recording quite late for me, so I've had a long day of working and in enjoying our favorite herbs. So yeah, this is going to be an interesting conversation.
Looking forward to it.
Excellent. Let's jump into this, and I suppose we'll do the cliche thing that we do with most of our cannabis-focused guests, and we jump in with the question of sort of when and how did you first get involved in cannabis?
Well, I got started at an early age with cannabis, and that was just kind of recreational things, you know, kind of those things you're told not to do. I was kind of one of those kids. No means yes. Okay, cool. But, you know, as the years progressed, like I had some stomach issues kind of like as a teen, and I didn't really realize that the cannabis was doing something for me there until I got later in life and I kind of connected the dots. So when I really got involved with it, as far as kind of being public or speaking with other people about it, it was around 2011, which Washington State, where I live, had a medical program, and it was fairly easy to get a card, which unfortunately led to the end of the medical program. But I got involved there, and having already realized at that point how it had benefited myself, I'm like, other people need to know. I first person to say I don't think it's for everybody, but I think there's a lot more people that haven't tried it that should try it. And one of the, you know, we have Reefer Madness is an old like propaganda film. So we had Reefer Madness here, and the generation ahead of me, the older generation, they're the most indoctrinated with that Reefer Madness, but they're also kind of the generation that I think could benefit the most from this. So I kind of started doing education for seniors when I got involved initially. It was like, you know, the silver hair tour was the joke, but I was like, come on, man. But one of the things that I faced there was, you know, not everybody wants to smoke, but a lot of different things can be treated different ways, topicals, edibles, such. So yeah, that's kind of how and why and when I got started publicly with cannabis education.
Nice. It's again, it's something we comment on quite a lot. The royal I comment on this podcast quite often. Is that we find our way to cannabis quite early, and some of us know immediately, and some of us it takes that kind of that time until we kind of step away from it and go, holy shit, something's wrong. And you're like, what's the thing that's missing? You're like, it was the weed. And you're like, but everyone and everything is saying that it's wrong. And I'm like, and you're like, but the thing, I know that you're not. So I think it's amazing that your journey transitioned straight into education rather than into how can I make money from this? It's immediately, oh, this thing works for me. How can I spread that? I think that's a really commendable and respectable thing, because a lot of people go, this thing works. It's valuable. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. We definitely do see that. And I was kind of fortunate too, you know, again, being in Washington State, I spent my teen years and 20s in the Pacific Northwest. So very good place to be for cannabis, even back then. So I've never really had like the bad cannabis around. Everybody always had the good stuff. So I never needed to like grow it. Of course, I didn't really have the money to do any of that for equipment, any of this stuff. So yeah, I'm just like, that's how I can, that's my place. That's my lane. Education is free. I can learn for free. I can talk for free. So that kind of helped me or guide me there.
Nice. So what was it, do you think, that drove you to that Silverhead tour is towards sort of the older generation? Did you have sort of a parent or someone that sort of suffered? Was it a close thing like that, or did you sort of observe the landscape and kind of go, let's target this group? I mean, that's not target, but you know what I mean? Let's focus on this group.
Well, that was the group that, again, like I knew that they could probably benefit from it most, just some of the research that was coming out. But also that's the group that tends to be in political power. And I know that you couldn't win over the people who actually make the laws by just preaching to younger people. And, you know, younger people may have different motives. Older people, it's maybe it was just a harder fight because they're already against it. But when you can use things like, you know, like NCIM, I believe is the official government website for publishing medicinal studies. So when you can actually quote like a reputable source, something that they would trust with information that actually exposes potential, you hope they listen. And that was available, that was there. And the research with legalization in 2012 in Colorado and Washington, the research was really starting to take off. There was more access to it. There was more potential. That's when they were discovering things like CBD, and, you know, now it's in every gas station over here. Yeah.
No, that is a good approach, tactical good approach, and I think if I was in a similar position, I would like to make similar choices, but I think mine, I guess, would be more from looking at, I guess, my mother and her generation in this country and their general overall health, and yet, as you say, they are the most indoctrinated generation. A lot of the millennials for over like 20 years, a bridge, the widest generational gap, as it were. We're the death throes of just say no. We're the death throes of dare, the death throes of these last remaining campaigns of bigotry and ignorance. Do you know what I mean? Of prejudice. And then a lot of us kind of got left in the middle of going, well, we all know that that's bullshit, but we weren't quite there with all of the medicinal studies and the education, the academics, research, etc. So yeah, how much you said that? So when we're talking in the first question about the medicinal program being so, let's say, the rules quite loose, and this led to its sort of downfall. Yeah. Is there something in that timeline of the? So when did the medicinal sort of come on board in Washington, and is it effectively the legalization killed it?
Yeah. So, and I could be wrong here, but I believe it was 2006 that Washington adopted a very loosely framed medical program, but it was very hard to get a recommendation. So it never really formed. It never really functioned as a market. And then in 2010, I believe it was, the laws changed of who could actually write the recommendation. It changed to RNs now. So you didn't have to be a particular high-level doctor. You had to have still training. But RNs, there are a lot more of them. And so when that happens overnight, boom, 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 all of these places to get your recommendation popped up. And everybody had their, registered nurse. Sorry for going again, initials, RN, registered nurse. So if you're a registered nurse, you can write these recommendations. And the first place that I went, it was kind of funny, but in a sad way. You walk in and basically you go to the counter and there's a big waiting room of people. You fill out the clipboard, you give them your $200, you sit down, and they're like, okay, everybody come in. Doctor sees you, asks you, okay, what do you guys have? I've got a hangnail, sir. I get headaches, sir. Okay, here's your recommendation. So anybody could get a recommendation. I'm sorry, that was a long way of getting there, but anybody could get a recommendation, and you were allowed certain growing rights, and you could stack those grower rights. So let's say we were both medicinal patients. You had a right to grow 15 plants. You could sign that to me. And what was happening is, anybody with a hangnail would go and get a medicinal card, sign it over to this person, and now they have this big warehouse. It was very unregulated, and it got taken advantage of. Legalization was looking to consolidate that, but it put an end to it as far as true value for medicinal patients. Basically, the value today, or the difference today, is you save a little bit of tax dollars.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. As we were sort of discussing before we started recording, Washington's quite the oddity. For people that sort of don't know, its legalization model doesn't include home growing, which is again quite interesting. Looking at the divergence between Colorado and Washington, I think it was in November 2012 that they sort of passed. I think there was then that discretion of gift economy and various pop-up events, and some real creative interpretations of legislation went down until the dispensaries kicked in 2014, and love to see it. But how have things kind of converged since then in the decade plus now since?
I almost feel like there's not as much activism anymore. There's not as much organization. It seems like the bright minds and the motivated people have gone to other states where maybe they stand a better potential of making a difference. Not to say we don't still have our homegrown activists, and we do, but the companies that are running or that own these licenses are so entrenched with the policymakers that they're really steering the ship as kind of like pulling the strings and the puppet master. So consumer advocacy, there may be a big force in this state, but I'm just not aware of it. And I think that's kind of our problem. We've almost resigned to what it is. Home grow, getting close to that, it's further than it's ever been. And you're right, Colorado went the Wild West model. We went the super restrictive model because Washington was afraid of federal intervention. So, you couldn't grow, and it didn't even make it to a hearing for probably the first 5 or 6 years. It then got the hearing, then the vote got delayed. The session ended, so then it had to be brought up next time. It did finally get to hearing. It did pass through that hearing to take the recommendation, and then 2019 happened and it stalled. It got brought back up this legislative session and just fell to the wayside. There were crickets. So I'm sure it'll get brought up again next year, but there just doesn't seem to be a impending need for it in their eyes.
Yeah, you can understand why. If you're not a cannabis consumer or a lover or a grower, you're not an enthusiast, and you're presented with this problem, your logistics, you're looking, this group wants this thing. These interstate producers know how to make the thing. They make the thing, that plus that, problems are gone. We tax it, job done. For them, it looks so easy everywhere. I said them, the authoritative establishment system, looking at it going, oh, we in the States, because the devolved power means that citizens' initiatives can change the fucking law, frankly. They can't in many other places in the world. But wherever these kind of legalization machine lands, it's sort of churn up that culture, and it astroturfs that which it can't replace. So it then becomes the dominant narrative, and Washington was kind of, we don't have the space. We don't have the need. We have all of this pre-established industry that was created through that medicinal complex. And that seems to be the pattern that's repeated in the 10 years since, is a medicinal model comes in first. The interstate players go, well, it needs to be of the highest quality and grade, and only us and all of these regulations that we've helped write, we're the ones that can help, navigate. So we'll set up this for you, and here you go. And then they start lobbying to get that recreational to a larger market. And they're not caring about the consumer, as you said. That there isn't, what I've seen in America or anywhere, I pitched this Cannabis Consumers Union, a CCU. I've spoken this for a while, that it needs a global movement. The industry is global. The consumer needs to have a trade body protecting it. It's going to be a long time before governments finally go, all right, you deserve the same consumer protections as everybody else. Right. Until, look, the fucking, what do you call them? The ATF, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms.
Yeah.
They just came out and reiterated that until federal legalization, there is going to be bans on owning firearms if you are a medicinal cannabis consumer. And they're trying to extend that obviously wider. There's these issues and problems that arise from that overarching federal model and these little pilot schemes, as frankly I look at it, that the federal system, you call it the deep state, to use a certain parlance, the people that are not voted out, those institutions, it's a longitudinal study. They're just looking at each sector and going, to compare this one to this one? All right, if we scaled that across federal, what would that look like? All right, so we want to get rid of that rule. So send your lobbyists to this and do this, and now get rid of that and that. And it's massaging the numbers, trying to get to that perfect equation where Google steps in and goes, oh, we'll have this. Do you know what I mean? Like Alphabet, the BlackRocks, the Vanguards, these investment vessels, they go, lads, it's finally time. We're going to buy CBD. All right, we done? We all good? Move. And then they just buy the sector.
Yeah, and that very perceptive.
That's what it feels like is happening. And obviously another thing you've got to throw loads of things for you to respond to here is the DEA obviously now coming after these synthetic and semi-synthetic cannabinoids like THC, THCP, your non-Delta-9 variants. So yeah, it's interesting. They let it out, and they thought that would appease us. And we've gone, well, here's all these problems, and they're not problems. They're potential profit margin areas. They're things that we can massage to make money from and coerce your control and conformity through. So I think, as you said in the preamble, is legalization really legal, or is it just? Yeah. I can't remember what you said.
It's just regulated.
Is it just regulated? Yeah.
Yeah, it's regulated to their advantage. It absolutely is. And with the synthetic things, well, it's like, who else makes synthetics? Pharma. So I'm not surprised that that's getting shut down or looked at harder. Again, these companies might be thinking of something, whether it's a cannabinoid or a method that they haven't thought of yet. Where does that intellectual property go once it's seized? So there's also that potential as well. So yeah, we do need a unified system. That's why we need a legalization federally, because we have so many piecemeal systems. And, again, Colorado and Washington, dramatically different. And that plays out every state. And it really sucks being in one of the older states of legalization. Every new state, pretty much, that comes online, New York, I'm looking at you, your system is way better than ours. Like, I'm jealous. So,
is public consumption still banned in Washington?
Oh, yeah. Legalization effectively killed the festivals because you can't gather in large public places and consume anymore. That was something that we had in the medicinal program, but that's regulated in the recreational, I always say it's adult use system. So, yeah, it messed up a whole lot of things.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing in that, as you say, I don't think it's just Washington. I think that even the people that have moved into the other sort of states, the money that is offered, the lifestyle change, the potential future, that class evolution, I think it is too tempting for a lot of people, and a lot of people then were manipulated into believing that we're doing good by people that are, I won't say con men, but they are very confident, very capable in what they do and very clear in the agenda that they have, and they obfuscate it from us to be able to tell what they want, but they can weave a narrative and we go, oh, these are the people that are going to set us free. And before we even realize, our heads are in the nooses and it's too late. And this is what I keep trying to remind the UK is that unfortunately we're not America, in the sense that that's going to piss off some of my fucking nationalist British viewership there. What I mean,
grass is greener on the other side.
Always, yeah,
always.
But the fact that you have those civil initiatives, like we were saying, that enough people can get together and have a ballot and have to get that heard, have to get that mechanism. Mm-hmm. Here in the UK, because of the corruption of our House of Lords with their hereditary peership, they'll be lords till they die and they can hand down the lordship. And they come from the MPs, and the MPs actually vote to put them in there. The MPs that will pass our legalization law then become the guys that rebut it. So like you have the House and the Senate where it goes back. Ours has to go back through 3 votes to then go to what they call royal assent to then be signed off by our fucking monarchy. So anything that once they get their model passed and they're making the fucking money from it and it's ring fencing the industries that they want to protect, doesn't matter what we want or where there's these pitfalls or how many people are criminalized. They will point to it and go, that's what legalization is. You are legal.
Wow. They do have a slick way of doing things. And, we were talking about earlier, at least in Washington and Oregon markets, I'm fairly in tune with, but the companies here are in the legislators' ears saying, don't allow home grow because they have a huge surplus. And the more surplus they have, the lower the prices go. And they're like, well, we can't even afford to pay you all this tax now. So yeah, it's they cherry pick the narrative.
Yeah, entirely. Entirely. I think it's interesting. I think Washington's location to Oregon, I think, dramatically affects your legislator as well. I think because Oregon went, here's some shit, and dropped all the licenses in the world and kind of went a bit hell for leather. And if they've pulled it back, I mean, I was reading a story of a consequence of this where they've pulled these licenses back because it became so ubiquitous and it's so overwhelming to the local sheriffs in different regions that there's one of the towns that like borders Northern California, and for like a 6-month period, I think was it last year? Was the year before? Might be the year before. The sheriff basically declared like a local state of emergency because of Mexican cartels growing weed to take to Mexico.
Yeah, like no, it's going the other way now.
It's mental. So the border guards, instead of they're going like, stop the drugs getting into America, stop the drugs getting out of America, and they're just fighting over it. And they're like, what are we doing here? I think Oregon, obviously, their smart solution was to push for this interstate trade. They're really trying to get heavy into that, and I think. I imagine, because obviously it's a lot of the same players like Curaleaf, Trulieve, etc. They're seeing what they can get away with in one place. And like you said, they're in the ear of all the legislators, so they can just go, well, we happen to be doing this over here, and here's the numbers that say you guys will get paid. Do you know what I mean? And that's all they care. It's economic stimulation. They don't care about how many people, like, I keep saying to people this whole thing of, you have 2 ounces on the street. And I was like, what happens when you've got 57 grams? 1 gram too many. What happens then? If you get punished for that?
Is it a fine? Is it jail?
Is it legalization? If it all getting punished, if you get caught with alcohol, say in the street in the UK, basically just take it off you, pour it out, throw it away. Do you know what I mean? You have to really piss them off to get caught up in that system. Do you know what I mean? And you'll get like 3 warnings. The same cop will usher you out of a city. They'll keep bumping into you and just keep giving you that thing, unless you're obviously abusive to them or whatever.
Right.
And we deserve the same sort of discretion. We deserve to just exist. Cannabis smokers are everybody, and we live our lives. You know, we finish at a restaurant. Why can't we go outside and have a joint? Do you know what I mean? Want a nice walk through some woods, in a national park? That's the thing that gets me. National parks still being points of criminalization is mind-blowing. And I didn't find that out until I took a shitload of weed into one of the national parks in California and was like, informed by another fellow camper that, you can't smoke around here. It's all illegal. I'm like, it's in California. And they went, in the national... And I was like, oh my fucking days. Yeah.
Technically, again, if they're having a bad day.
But I just thought, as a Brit, if I got some real national type, it was like, this is America, buddy, fucking the Tea Party kind of guy.
I feel bad for you.
I could have got in some serious shit. So there's a few moments I had like that, because like I said, when I did this road trip in America, I did like 6,000 miles. Then in Colorado, drove through like Oregon, went to Washington, went down to like California and that. Nice. And I deliberately picked, like, I would find a map and they go, like, these roads converge, but there's no name. Let's go there. For the tiniest spots, go load of dispensaries on the way, find the tiniest place, buy the cheapest roach motel, and meet the most quintessential American people.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And it was these guys like, my pappy ran this place, and he ran his daddy, and I was like, I want to talk to you, mate. So, I was sitting like on the porch. I bought like a cooker and stove. I did it all budget, proper budget, man. Spent high-end money on weed, but fuck me, nothing on travel and whatever. Rented a car, and I was like pasta and sauce and shit, like Walmart pasta sauce, like a 5-liter thing, and just pull up on the side of the road and like cook me dinner and whatever. So at the motels, I'd sit on a night with a joint out front and cook, and never got wrong in any of the states I was in. I had a few people come and sort of have chats, but as soon as you're British, and it would be immediately just having the usual jibes and laughs about us and our not too distant history.
That's awesome, man. That is definitely the way to do it. Like, if you want adventure here, that's the way to do it. And boy, do we have it. Like, it's fun. And 6,000 miles, you covered a lot of this country. And I'm sure you saw there are very, very different pockets of people and just vegetation. That's one thing I always love to see when I travel, is like, what is the vegetation like?
Yeah, driving across, is it the Rockies? Yeah, the Rockies, and going like up and snow and all that, and then coming down. And there's one point like just literally billions of trees. It was incomprehensible to me. And the roads were like 4 lanes wide, going through the mountain ways. And there's points where I get like half an hour, 40 minutes, and no cars. And the only thing I could get on the radio was like Christian revival preachers telling me I was going to hell. And it was just like, this is crazy. I like this. I like, the mentalist experience. And then pulling over to meet somebody, and I've got a really quite a neutral accent for a Geordie, like Northern England. I'm not a Geordie by birth, but I've lived here long enough. But still, I would speak to someone and go, what? And I'd have to really think of what I was saying, because I'd be in somewhere where I'd have quite a regional, local dialect. And like I said, it was like, because I chose the smaller spots. I hated the idea of going and seeing the same things. I don't just want to see Starbucks, Target, Walmart, the same just crap. I wanted to actually look at stuff. So I spent like time going in gun shops and I found like taxidermist in one of the places. And I'm a vegan and a pacifist, but I was still just like, I want to check this shit out. You know what I mean? I'm an adventure. True tourist. Yeah, I wanted to absorb the culture, and I've never had more respect for the Americans. Obviously, I was kind of born with a hatred of French and Americans. Not as in I was born with it, but they instill it in us. It's the only history we get. Americans bad, French bad. Oh, we don't like the Germans for the past 100 years. But other than that, we don't get any real history. So to actually go and see it, and at the end of like my 6 weeks, I avoided LA like the plague. I had to fly out of LAX, and it was like,
not worth it.
So I went to a dispensary in it was like middle. So I'd come out of Humboldt after a few days there, and I'd come to the first like major area. And the dispensary experience was terrible. The guy outside, literally cop with a hand on like his gun. You go into I went through airlock doors, had to surrender my passport. And I was like, I was staying in, I think it was Eureka. And so I just went, fuck this. And I did a 3-hour round trip and just drove back to Oregon to go get weed. But I didn't realize that there's border checks for fruit and vegetation. And so I get pulled over, and the cop's like, and I'm like, oh my God. And I've got all this weed. And all he's like, you got any vegetables? And I'm like, am I tripping? And he's like, you got any fruits? And I'm like, no. And then, okay. And I'm like, okay. And just drove away. Like, what the fuck was that? It was the maddest experience.
That border check is a trip. The first time I ever hit that, I was driving down to Bay Area with my buddy. It was at night. He was driving. And so I was sleeping in the back seat. And like, I just hear something like, wake up. I like wake up and I look. And, you got those like neon lights at the top and just like the border stop and the guy with the badge, and he's looking in and he's asking questions. And for like 30 seconds, I thought we were in Mexico. I had no idea there was a border in between Oregon and California. I was like, what the? But and then shortly after you get out of that, coming down Grants Pass, you get weed. So did you take a picture of the weed next to exits?
Yeah, I went to weed, and there's one of the shops, and it's on the side of it, like all the best things of weed, and I was just like, okay, cool. Went in, and I was like, you fuckers. And I went to speak to the shop owner, and he was like, man, you wouldn't believe how many people we get with this. And I was like, cool. And then he was explaining like how the county system worked, and he was like, I can't remember which, like township or whatever it is, they were a dry area. Like there are no dispensaries. They'd voted to opt out.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, we could kill a tourism. And I was like, why don't you guys you could open a resort here. People would pay big money to fly to go and stay in Weed, California.
Yes.
And they were just like, we don't like it around here. And I was like, but Weed. And they're like, that's the name of the town. And I just had this kind of weird back and forth with him. I was kind of being half humorous, but it was still just like, it's called weed though. And it's like, yeah, but that's cannabis. And I was like, but weed.
You don't get it. Yeah. And this was way before legalization there. I think this might have even been before their Prop 215. So wow. Yeah. That was a funny experience though. We do have a border. And it's just for fruit, like you said, just for fruit though.
Mental, because like I've dealt with a lot of police and authoritative services. You know, I've flown around the world. I've traveled, and I do like allegedly things that are currently criminalized in some jurisdictions. But yeah, I didn't expect it. It was like I didn't pass something on the way out. Like what's happening? And I was pretty sure it was the same road. I'd maybe take like a loop and come in a different way because I wanted to go through like some forest. And yeah, I was just like, what the fuck? Terrifying, absolutely terrifying. But I think he clocked it. It'll have been like, I'll have stunk. The weed will stunk. The car will have stunk. You know what I mean? And I'll have just had like bits on the thing because I walked out of where the hell was I? I was in Mesa, the northwest of Colorado. It's like a sort of desertous region. I was meeting an activist, and I went around sort of a house, and on the way past, a truck overtook us. My windscreen exploded. Like a rock had hit my windscreen, exploded. And I pulled over to some dispensary to ring Alamo, whichever one I was with at the time. And they were like, because of your location, it's going to take, and they were like, they listed like 3 different hours times of things. And they went, oh, you can drive to Salt Lake City. And I'm like, what?
Ooh, Utah.
Yeah. And I was going to go to Utah anyway. I'd already planned it. Like I didn't realize till afterwards. I cleaned out my grinder and stuff because I looked at their rules. But then I found out it's 6 months in prison for paraphernalia.
I've honestly never been to Utah because of their zero tolerance law.
It scared the shit. I'm excited to go to the airport and switch it out. And then on the way in, I got caught up in, I didn't know that pack speeding is a thing in America where like cars will hook together and move. And I'm allegedly, if you look at my driving record, maybe have some problems with some of these big flashy cameras. And when I was out in the States, all these signs were saying like, speed limit enforced by aircraft. And I was like,
yes,
what? Fuck off. And yet when came into it, and then the pack I was kind of with slowed the fuck down. And I was like, what the hell's going on? And then a series of 5 bikes, like individually, like camera, then one, then a camera, then another. And the first guy would clock it, ring him, he'd come and tag you. And everyone but me in the pack got some attention. I mean, they were in Dodges, like proper fucking cars. I was in whatever fucking Mazda, some like UPD 4x4 smart e-vehicle thing. And yeah, they all got pulled and clocked and pulled it in the airport. And the valet guy kind of switched out the car, goes in the car. And I'm like, oh, fuck. And I had nothing with us. Like literally, I spent the entire night, the sort of the night before, going through everything I had, eating every edible I had, eating. Do you know what I mean? Trying to discount everything I couldn't. It was the only thing I kept was a Colorado state grinder. So I had like the state flag on. And I was like, that's a lovely little. And yeah, managed to fucking get through that whole thing. But Jesus, it's so weird that an arbitrary line on the floor is 6 months in prison on one side, and it's a joke on the other. Because when I pulled over in that dispensary in Mesa and rang these people, I had that much amount of time. I went into the dispensary and bought some stuff, and I was like, I have a bit of time, you know, I can eat these. I think there were one edibles, like a 10-pack or whatever they were, and I was like, I can go through them, and had a couple of pre-rolls. As I walked out of the dispensary, there was a cop like driving past slow, and I went and like shoved the weed in my jacket. And I didn't have a jacket on because I'm in the middle of the desert, so I'm warm. So I'm literally just shoving a bag in, and the cop just like slows and kind of looks at me and laughs and just drives. And it's like, the fuck? And I'm like, I'm going to go to a place where I've just had to clean everything because it was just such a mind trip. Same with like the border, it was just a beautiful landscape, but it's mental how there are such different rules and across the whole of it. It was, a definite trip for sure.
I'm about to travel to a state where it's not legal. And okay, so to me, typically, because like I don't smoke openly in the town that I live just because it's a small town and just can't get away with it. But in Seattle, like if I'm not near a school or a playground, I don't care. I'll light up a joint anywhere and nobody's going to say anything unless I'm standing outside somebody's window and it's going straight in. Maybe they don't like it. But yeah, going to a state where it's not legal, I'll be more cautious of where I smoke, but I'm not used to just having it on my person. That is like enough to go to jail. Hopefully not, because I wouldn't be a dick. But if it was a bad day for the cop, I mean, I always joke, like people are still going to jail for what I have in my carpet right now. But it's true. And that's a sad joke.
Yeah. Yeah. It's terrible. It's like there's people put to serious labor. I'm thinking Dubai before it kind of reformed its rules on THC from tourists of flying in and the self-disclosure. And there's like a guy who got caught up with a bit of weed on his shoe. Another guy they found it in his, I think it was an American, where they found some crumbs in his pocket. Wow. And he got detained and had all sorts of shitty issues. And literally, like, my cat jumped on us the other day and I was on the couch. I was stroking her. The hell is this? And I thought it was like a tick or like a lump or something. It wasn't. It was just, again, a little bit of a bud. And it was just like it's nothing. It's not a bong. It's not a pipe. It's just a bit of discarded weed that fell off a table. But that is enough evidence. And if it's anything that justifies, when you look at the apparatus of what prohibition is, the militarization of the police, the fortification of the judiciary and private prison systems, and the profiteering of criminalizing that, this little thing.
Well, you said the magic word for business is there, profit. When there's for-profit prisons, there's an incentive to put people in jail. There's a financial incentive to put people in jail. So sometimes they come up with the stupidest shit. And cannabis laws being one of them, particularly non-violent offenders. That is one of the stupidest things I could probably think of.
Yeah, entirely. Entirely. It's a shame that, like I say, it is still going on in not the majority of states anymore, obviously. I mean, even most of the states that don't have sort of legalization, as it were, they do have some medicinal model where there is at least some discretion put into place. There, obviously, if you're trafficking pounds upon pounds of it, it's a different conversation. But small possession, self-medicating, but not through official channels. Even if you're smart enough to kind of say, "Oh no, this is medicinal, not recreational," you kind of get, they allow that game to be played if you're kind of clued up how to play it.
And that's, that's kind of what I always talk to people about. And that's why I kind of focus like education on like small grows, something that would be for the home grower. I've grown craft, I've grown commercially before, but it's all personal consumption. If you don't talk about it like very openly, like none of my neighbors know that I smoke cannabis. I'm sure they assume, but I've never said, yeah, I love it. As long as it's just kind of personal consumption, you're quiet, do your thing, man. Like those aren't really the people that are getting messed with, but technically they could. So that's the hard part. Like with the gun laws too, it's like, you can't have a concealed carry, you can't have firearm. Now, is that being enforced? No, but if something else were to happen and they wanted to add a charge to everything, they could. So it's that stupid like gray area. It's just holding. We're not really going to enforce it, but if you do something else, we're just throwing everything at you.
Yeah. It's the kosh again. It's that weapon, that tool that they have to instill fear in us. And I agree with the sentiment that it's. I often say, like in Durham up here in the Northeast, we've kind of led the way on the evolution of, our police force led the way of kind of deprioritizing cannabis and trying to set up diversion for petty possession and smaller cultivation charges. Oh no, I just lost my train of thought.
We're just talking about how the deck is stacked sometimes.
Yeah, and so it's What we kind of came from that is it's about being a respectful neighbor. So the rules never really changed, but it was they chose how they could enforce it. So then if you, like you said, if there were other mitigating factors, if you were being an arsehole threatening, if you were ticking people on and then threatening them if they couldn't afford to repay it or something like that, those are the mitigating factors that they would then lean on it.
Yeah.
But I still feel that the issue is in that space that people still have a boot on them. There is still force being applied to them, even if it's not directly being applied at that moment. Psychologically, the pressure is still there. I mean, we've mentioned it on, I think, the past 3 episodes of the Panopticon, the idea of like the 360 prison, where the prisoners face the guard tower, but they don't know if the guard is ever looking at them. So it changes over time their behavioral patterns because they don't know when and when they're not being observed. And it's a similar thing with us, with being cannabis consumers, is you can go through your life at any point knowing that your life could be ruined by that bad cop having a bad day, that he could just smell it, identify you, target you, because it's not even a case of even if you're out having that joint, we carry the smell, unfortunately, and there are some people who have such a prejudice towards it, like that generalized kind of the lingering cannabis smell, not even like the wonderful bouquet of terpenes, but that kind of smoked smell, and they kind of go, well, oof, that's drugs, that's bad things. And there's no narrative that can suppress that. They are so self-righteous and entitled in their own mind to be like, well, you are a bad person. You bad person, you smell bad, you're a bad person. And it's just so mental to me that we're still there when there's sections of the world that are making ungodly amounts of money from this. You've got places like Zimbabwe and that now starting to produce major crops for medicinal markets, yet a kid walking down the street in fucking London is, depending on his fucking colour in the postcode, is either going to risk a fucking, a kick-in and potentially dying in police custody along with the 4,000 people that have in the past 40, 50 years.
Jeez. Yeah, man. Oh God, I lost my train of thought there because I was about to get worked up, but it's stupid how, it does hang over your head. Like parents, man, that's one of the biggest injustices, how it just hangs over your head. Like nowadays, every 420, every news channel has we're hitting it up today, like stupid weed puns. And it's a big event. It's a corporatized, commercialized day. And I'm like, how are we celebrating when like the person that's trying to like, use cannabis for themselves or even like try to improve their sick child's lives, how can they still be getting torn away? And you have to be so secretive. You can't talk about it. And that is always going to hang over their head, whether you're in a legal state or not, because the child protection laws are disconnected from your rights with cannabis again. So you were talking about just stuff hanging over your head, and that was the example that came to mind, because to me, that's just bullshit.
It's true. The same is true with employment, with housing, education, a multitude of other facets are that can kind of, you are known to consume cannabis, and that's just kind of added to a little list somewhere at some point. And then you step out of line, you criticize somebody you shouldn't, you question something you shouldn't, you do something that they deem to be, inappropriate or to bring whatever establishment or institution it is into disrepute, and they go, oh, let's have a look. Cannabis. Okay, go, if you're a student, raid their dorm. If you're rented, that landlord, you've pissed him off because you've asked him to come fix the fucking water, and he knows that you've been a cannabis consumer. He sends the fucking cops, kicks you out, gets in somebody else, and then are going to complain. And if they do, runs the same gambit of whatever he's written down. It's another thing that is, again, like I said, is used against us. I've said for a while, I really wish that I got involved in this when I was younger and people like Jack Herrer and that was still alive. Because I feel like there's so much that I didn't get to learn from these people that I want to instill of this idea of liberation. That it's legalization is a small step on the way. It's not, the end is us laughing about this. At the end of it, it's when everybody is free. There isn't a boundary of legalization. It means that there is no criminalization. That's the end of the war to me. Do you know what I mean? And
absolutely. That's like we're saying earlier. Is it really legal, or is it just by your rules? Because they're two different things.
Wait, I always use the analogy of tomatoes. I want cannabis to be as free as tomatoes. You know, Heinz exists and dominates the ketchup market, or at least it does in the UK. But I can grow tomatoes at home, buy even a pressing machine if I wanted, buy some bottles offline, buy even labels and sell them at like a car booty at a craft fair or whatever. You know, and there's minimal regulation. There's the opportunity for me to then set up a small business and actually go get it registered, then adhere to hygiene and health and safety and all these other regulations that exist, and then become a full-fledged business. Whereas it seems cannabis, and now more increasingly psychedelics, they're looking at a thing of going, no, we have to lock this down in such a way that it only is allowed past a certain scale of corporate interest. Anything beneath that is criminal activity. You know, because, you must be criminals because why are you not up here? Why are you not in this legitimate system? If you wanted to participate, you'd be doing this. And it's that circular thinking that they've tricked us into it. And they've got the layman that's looking at this going, well, why are the cannabis people complaining? You've legalized it. They should be happy. And we're sat here, obviously, like I said, with the lack of sort of leadership and creativity within the activism spaces globally because of what's happening. People are being taken into the legalization. We have to go through the washing machine of legalization to come out the other end of it and go, well, that wasn't the ride I was thinking it was supposed to be. We've arrived at the end of it, like as most regions do, and go, well, what's next? And yet you hit that wall with the politicians of going, that's the end. We've legalized it. It's over. You've got your thing. We'll tweak around the margins, but we've not really been freed. I can go and buy all the alcohol in the fucking world right now. I could sit on a live stream and drink myself to death. And no one is going to punish anybody. It's only going to be poor Simpa and his mental health. You know, that reckless action that he committed, but he as an adult chose to do. Why do I have that autonomy? Why can I jump out of a plane? Yeah, I have to sign a form that means my family won't sue anybody if I die, but I'm entitled to do that. I can go and race a fucking car at 200 miles an hour. I can't afford to do something like that experience, or scuba dive, or you get the kind of the thread that I'm pulling at here is we have this autonomy to do all these other things. Yet when it comes to this little plant, they've still somehow got us, even the people that have pro all the evolution and movement in this space, still kind of singing from their hymn sheet. Of going, oh, well, you're right, yeah, we should. Why are we? It's like we're in an abusive relationship, and with the woman trying to leave or the man trying to leave, and we're listening to the partner tell us about how our life should go. It's like, no, we want rid of you. You have been our abuser, our oppressor, our persecutor for decades. We want a life free from you. That isn't to say a withdrawal of government and systems. That's an entirely different conversation. But in terms of cannabis regulation, don't talk to me for 5 years. Change the law, come back in half a decade. We'll tell you what we want because we'll have figured it out by then. We'll have opened businesses with free market economics for all again. Capitalist system as it currently is set up. Those mechanisms would show us what the free market wants, what individuals want, because consumers would be allowed to do it. Whereas California right now, the majority of the market is still unregulated because they're serving the needs of the consumers.
Yeah, and education, man. That's why I'm an educator. That is the way that we do make the biggest difference in the long run. Because, we bang our heads against the wall, but you have to appeal to people in whatever way works for them. And there's many ways. And, as the generations progress, it's going to be an easier conversation. But the people who are cool are not necessarily the ones making the laws right now. But I always point back to, at least in the US, and kind of what I always feel was the dam breaking of support was the story about Charlotte Figge, who was the little girl. She had Dravet syndrome, seizures, just the life was unimaginable. Dr. Sanjay Gupta did a special. I think it was even just called Weed on CNN. Mm-hmm. Now, anybody who watched that saw the difference that it made for this little girl. And I always say, and I'm like almost getting a tear right now because dude, I feel so passionate about this, but it's like anybody who can watch that and still say weed is bad, it should be illegal, is an asshole. Like, you really are. So we need to open the doors, just at least for, cool, dude, let us study it more. Quit only funding studies that look for negative impacts. Do some meaningful freaking research. And you're probably going to find some really great things. And you know what? If there is something bad about it, like the cannabinoids are the benefit in combusting the flower, like we find out over time, well, maybe that can lead to something bad. Who knows? I'm just making that up. But if there is something bad about this, I want to know too. Mm-hmm. You know, asbestos was just a building material until it wasn't. Yeah. So I'm a big fan of cannabis, a big advocate of it. Just let us freaking study it, man, because we showed you that it can make a difference. Mm-hmm. It's not even a study. That's real life. So education, and that, I think, is the way forward.
Yeah, I think you're right. I often, especially when I'm sort of speaking on the podcast, get stuck in just this track with it. And I forget was it Sonder? Is that the term for it? Like the complexity of other humans, and that everybody is just, even the ardentest prohibition, there's still a human inside. There's a reason. Yeah, there may be an arsehole, as you described. There's a reason they've kind of come to their stance, and it's a myriad of things that awaken people. It is, you know, some people sleep through a car alarm. Some people that joke of sleep through the apocalypse. It's literally what's happening now. Is some people were woken up by that, as it were, to again borrow a parlance of our times, like a term of our times. And others, it's going to take a lot more. But I think it's that the curve of irony toward this, of, like you said, it's that generation that is prohibiting it most, or the generation that would benefit from it most. Unfortunately, when they die out, like you said, it gets easier because the awareness, the usage, the access. As I said, the research thing I agree with. I really was pleased to see the federally, at least, have extended the licensing beyond that. Was it Missouri University of Missouri?
Mississippi, I believe. It's the shittiest weed you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah, deliberately. And that's what they set up for decades as a way to counter this. They'd get all these anecdotal claims and go, oh, we'll hand this to our cherry-picked one group of researchers that we've paid to produce the shittest stuff in the world, and go, doesn't correlate. You people are wrong. So they've expanded that, as you kind of alluded to before. I worry of where all of this research and knowledge goes now. Because, somebody might find a novel extraction for something, and then the company, patent and research and development, and that's hidden and gone. And 10 years passed by before the market could have been aware of that, and how many lives could have been saved by this new delivery system, or by this new awareness of synergy between these compounds. There's so much fuckery afoot that there doesn't seem to be one institution or entity that I can see anywhere. And frankly, people in the comments, please drop me if you think I'm wrong, and if you link me to them, that is truly, authentically, genuinely trying to just discover what the plant is, asking those questions. And if it's a bad outcome, here's what we found. Just honestly, openly, transparently having this conversation about cannabis. Because anything that does it, 2 steps removed. Let's look at your board, all right? Let's look at their investment. Let's look at the strategic partnerships you've got. Let's look at all this other business bullshit attached to it. And once you decode it and look through it, you're not here to discover the truth. You're here to prove your business model and then market it, lobby it, create it, and rule it. And it's a painful thing to see. I look around and there's a lot of people I hold in high esteem, but I think it's a collective apathy that I admit freely I'm suffering from heavily right now. That there is a lack of leadership, of collectiveness. Terrible language, amongst us globally, for a space for us to connect freely and be like, well, what does this next thing look like? Because everyone's still seeing legalization, and where we see legalization, we're seeing huge fucking potholes, problems, loopholes being exploited for business. Like I said, individuals still being criminalized, or even if they're not actively criminalized, their lives lessened, a shroud, a darkness that follows them, the fear. We deserve to be free from that. And I don't hear any politician, any business owner, any activist, even myself fucking included, fighting for this. I don't know how to fight for this. I don't even think we have the language for this currently,
Well, we used to. We did back when it was medicinal programs only. Like I again, being a legitimate medicinal user, I feel a little bit cheated, but medicinal use was a Trojan horse. We put all this attention into it. We put all this focus into it and spreading the stories and spreading the education. And then when it became legal, it's more about marketing and branding your new company than it is about trying to fight to get it legal anymore. So yeah, the collective unity has fallen off. But we, it's, recreational killed medical in many ways, but I think we can get back there and we need to get back there because the plant didn't change. The reason why, true believers like the plant hasn't changed, but the focus of the industry, because it is an industry now, has absolutely changed. Why do they need to necessarily care about medical patients? They're usually poor because they have medical bills, so they're not buying a lot of your products. But medicinally, well, that'll be big pharma, but we've got until they figure it out. So we just need to grab everything we can in the middle. And I wouldn't be surprised if we do find out 10 years from now that there was a novel application or a combination that could really benefit us. I love transparency. I understand wanting to test things, giving things actual trial periods, that type of information, but that should be not in the hands of like the private sector, I don't think.
Yeah, because it's not like any of the different research and development in a pre-existing industry with long established history with open source patents that have expired, a foundation to work from. We're still just scratching the surface of cannabis, frankly. We're only just starting to understand this, and we're having to look back at a lot of people that wrote about this in 1700s, 1800s, 1900s. And fuck, they were bang on. And then we're looking at a lot of the other stuff that they produced, and we're, that's wrong. And then another 5 years goes past. Fuck, they were right. So we're only rediscovering. I don't feel, we've got our wonderful imagery and thanks to Mashalem and people like that, we understood THC and the endocannabinoid system, and we're slowly creeping on this idea of the endocannabinoid hub, a larger system that's integrated with other systems within the human body and how that affects a plethora of other things. These other novel sort of synthetics and semi-synthetics we're discovering, it still feels we're a couple of pages into a very thick tome that by the end of it, if humanity gets there, the reality of humanity will be entirely different. And I think that's what I personally, with my tinfoil hat on, believe that the establishment is afraid of is true liberation. Cannabis causes metacognition and introspection. People that consume it, then they start thinking about shit. You can't not think about shit. And then you start thinking about the way you think about shit, and that blows your mind, especially for people the first time they have that separate experience. They're like ego and super ego together, kind of sitting, and you identify that you are not the thought, you are thinking about the thought. And again, very dangerous, because that brings not just the idea of collectivism and individuality together. You separate from this selfish creature that they've created under capitalism, this consumer. You kind of go, well, do I want that shit? You know what I mean?
It's the end of control.
Yeah. It's
really the end of control.
Yeah. And again, that's why I think, to me, legalization is, to borrow Jody Emery's term, it's Prohibition 2.0. It's that next Trojan horse. So that rather than, the dodgy cartels and these gangsters and this and this and this and all these other corrupt institutions and criminalized entities, as they describe them, regulating cannabis, granted often through violence and underhanded means, they've come in and gone, well, we're just going to apply the neoliberalistic free market economic model, and we're going to churn cannabis in one end and put it out the other, and there's your standard product, folks, and there's your weed, and enjoy it. And again, cannabis is so different to anything else because we can modify it and change it and play with it when we're breeding it. You can get a cut from somebody and another cutting some pollen, and you can become a real nerd. And other plants and other things in other industry are not like this. Everything, it's cheaper and easier to just go buy the thing than it is to go through the process. We haven't created all the secondary and equipment and shit. We're still, again, discovering all of that, the lights, the technologies and everything. And there's such booming industry all around this. And I think until we get to a point of almost if we got it, then we can move forward. And so because we don't know that collectively as humanity, I think it's a crime against humanity that they're allowed to hide these discoveries. Right. It's like if a private archaeologist unearths something that like rewrites human history, like a Graham Hancock style thing, and it's just, oh no, patented or whatever. It's like you're not allowed to hide that info. So why can you hide this info? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. At the same time, my answer again is it wouldn't surprise me if it was happening. Again, profit tends to do some crazy things to people.
It does indeed. It does indeed.
Some people, not all people, not the enlightened people. If you smoke enough cannabis and you're doing all right, then hopefully you're going to be happy.
I think if you are aware and sort of present in your own life, the idea of something like that, it's almost like too much of a hassle. Of too much money, of too much of an uptick. You're like, no, I've got the things I need. All you would bring me is more trouble, more money, more problems, you know?
Hey,
yeah. Let's have a look at my notes here, because there's some good questions I did want to chat to you about. So we were speaking about sort of the different way that the states are set up. Recently, I think it was last week, maybe. I don't know when I've made a note of this. Oklahoma voters basically rejected legalization. And it seems like their medicinal program is really quite expansive. So I just want to get your thoughts on that, especially as you were saying with what's happened in Washington. Do you see this as a positive or as a negative?
I see it as a net positive. Like ultimately, they've protected themselves a little bit longer from large multi-state organizations, MSOs, from kind of moving in and shutting, mom and pop down. But what they where they went right and where they went wrong, it all depends on which side you stay on, is they just allowed open licenses, almost like Colorado did originally. So anybody with the right amount of money, which wasn't excessive at all, it was very reasonable, you could get a license to grow. So a lot of people signed up for that, and a lot of people are doing that, and a lot of people invested, all their money into it. A lot of people from California moved there. A lot of people from Colorado moved there. You got hit with a surplus. And so now the businesses that went into it with a realistic model of like, well, I have room to do 200 lights, but I think the market might sustain 50. If you went into it with that sort of model, you're going to be probably one of the winners. But it's the people who went buck wild and just wanted to take over the place that are sitting on surplus. They can't afford to operate anymore. Those are going to be the losers. So having legalization denied kind of brought that to that industry. Otherwise, it probably would have continued to thrive if it were able to transition to a recreational market. Like that was the direction I think a lot of these people wanted it to go. So there's only a set number of medical patients, right? And there's a whole lot of people with licenses. So big picture, probably a good thing. But again, it depends on which side of the street you're on.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting I'm trying to peruse the article. I'm really good at remembering things when it's been a little bit of time. My short-term memory, because I read this morning, not quite there. I think obviously their requirements are really quite lax. I think, as you said, the supply and the accesses in terms of the number of dispensaries and businesses is really quite robust. So I think basically people have just gone down that route. Yeah, hangnail, job done. And I'm kind of, for a long time, I struggle with some of my neurodivergency. I'm going through kind of an autism assessment at the minute to try and figure things out. And I'm very black and white with some stuff. And I don't like having to play the game. Do you know what I mean? As I'm kind of currently forced to here in the UK, as I described to you in the preamble, here in the UK, we have a medicinal system, but it's only vaporization.
Yeah.
And it's a bit frustrating to someone like myself who I own a Volcano and several devices and just don't get the same relief, don't get the same thing that I get from sitting, knocking up a blunt, and then the first few off and just it hits the ashtray and it washes over me. Whereas then the hassle of kind of putting then the vape together and still eat, no matter the quality of the device, still just trying to get a feeling. And the worst like is a headache. I'll like hyperventilate and like get a bit lightheaded, and I'm not getting the same sort of relief. So I can see why, same with like Thailand for all, and I'm going to cover this in a future episode. I'm trying to get a podcaster out there actually to come on our podcast. Their laws are looking to change, but basically obviously under their decriminalization, as long as you said medicinal, you were fine. As long as you never said the R word, you know, this is recreational and non-medicinal, then you were fine. And for all I did, I don't like the game of that mechanism. I'm beginning to prefer that a hell of a lot to full-fledged capital L legalization, because that Prohibition 2.0, as we've seen roll out, I mean, Germany is, I think, the main forefront we're seeing of the war raging, because it's Europe's largest medicinal market. So I think that is them as a group and as the investors, for all some of them want to transition into that other market, a lot of the people who are in it for the right reasons, I think, see the advantage of keeping the current system and waiting for the EU model. And then obviously the European Union themselves are putting a lot of pressure on Germany to keep constantly going back to the drawing board and changing things. And I think, as we discussed on the last episode, their home grow is now going to be 3 plants per household per year. And you've got to buy the genetics from the cannabis. They call them cannabis clubs, but you're not allowed to smoke cannabis in the clubs. So you can buy cannabis from the clubs, genetics and seeds. And yeah, it's an odd one, because for all they've looked at New York and kind of gone, they've said you can smoke where you smoke tobacco, and looked at somewhere like Washington and gone nowhere. And they went, all right, between 8 p.m. and 7 a.m. you can smoke cannabis in some public vestibules and like spaces, as long as it's not within like 250 meters of a school. Even when it's like past 8 o'clock at night, they're still saying you can. There's loads of just different things that they're putting into it, and it's like that's what you're trying to get through. They're not trying to again serve the culture. It doesn't feel like any of these. They've stopped long since talking to the actual consumers, and they've kind of got.
Yeah, they focused in the wrong place. Mm-hmm. You know, sorry to interrupt there, but they're absolutely focused in the wrong place, and they're not listening to the right people. Again, those type of laws, that language is absolute lobbyist, you know, speak. It's like nobody, come on, 8 o'clock at a closed school, like that's stupid. Like why would you even say that? Why would you even bring that up? Why are you wasting their time? There's many other things and other intelligent people that can help guide you, but you're not getting that. And you mentioned people a couple of times, you know, those just people who are staunchly against it, that smell it and be like, oh my goodness, going to hell, calling police right away. Those people, you know, kind of like talking to them, because ask them, okay, why is it bad? And then usually it boils down to like a propaganda piece or a religious argument. And a lot of times, particularly with the propaganda pieces, you can start, if you are educated enough, you can intelligently and articulately explain how and why that is bad information. Now they can choose not to listen to you, but those are the people that really don't have a good reason. And when you ask them why, it's like, cause that's the answer. Those are the people we don't need, but those are the people that can't be at a school at 8 p.m. on a Saturday night with a joint in the air.
Yeah. Again, I hear it a lot from the lobbyists and various organizations and groups here in the UK. We have to be realistic. We have to put forward proposals that we think that the government will pass. Mm-hmm. And I get that argument to one degree, but that's a filter that you run the argument through. The argument is what is important here. And that is, it is wrong to criminalize, vilify, demonize individuals for a plant. Just in any capacity. Even if, again, it's an arsehole move. If a person eats a load of fucking edibles or whatever, and then they're too intoxicated in public and they're, in the northern parlance, whiting or being sick as a consequence of it, then they've done that. The drug didn't do that. The weed in him didn't go, oh, we're going to make you sick. It's his actions with it. In the same way someone drunk with alcohol and they piss in public. you get, I don't know what it is in the States, or like you get a fine and you can get arrested for it and get prosecuted for it. And again, it doesn't matter if you were intoxicated. It doesn't negate it, where it seems to be that we're still stuck on this cannabis thing of, we'll blame the drug, that the person was caught up in this thing. And we need to like demystify that whole thing and go, no, it's no different than tobacco or caffeine or sugar.
Yeah, there needs to be reasonable rules. I don't think it should just be a free for all. Like, I've mentioned earlier, it's, if I'm near a school or a park, I'm not going to light up. But if we're 8 o'clock at night, I wouldn't think twice. But otherwise, yeah, just some basic decency as far as how we operate. Don't leave, I get upset when I see like joint tubes on the ground, because everything has to come in a tube or some sort of packaging. When I see that on the ground, I'm just like, yeah, that's not looking good for us.
No, I agree. It's setting that standard again. It's being a champion and ambassador for that culture, and I feel like we don't have. No offense to anybody at all with what I'm about to say. I'm kind of just waffling this out of my brain as we go. We don't really have those kind of respected elders as a society in the West anymore in general, but especially not, I think, in the cannabis space, of people that kind of lead by example, that set that etiquette. It was something that I became sort of notorious for, I guess, at the UK events, was running around and litter picking. Was constantly trying to get people going, this is the thing they'll hang us for. We can get 500 people together in this field and get as high as we want. People can make all the money they want and we can celebrate our culture. But then when the newspaper guys come around in the morning, they get to take a picture of this shit. If it isn't immaculate, dirty hippies, druggies, stoners, destroy local park. We have to be smarter. We have to, and it just feels like they hear legalization and they see what's happening around the world. They literally see the surface level reporting, the press release that's put out by the companies that is regurgitated through the cannabis mainstream media system. And they go, oh, this means that this. And it's like, well, it really isn't. It's been misrepresented. It's a fluff piece. It's designed to make you have an opinion and worldview that isn't reality. And so everyone just rests on the laurels and goes, oh, beer in 5 years, beer in a few years. And every year that ticks over, the royal the establishment, those prohibitionists that years ago were hating on us, and now heads of advisory boards, they are getting paid in shares. We saw this with, was it Bill Blair in Canada? There's a former cop really hardened against cannabis guy, and then suddenly starts lobbying for cannabis. And then as soon as cannabis becomes legal, ends up getting allegedly paid, backhanded by various companies. So it's interesting. Yeah.
We have a former Speaker of the House now that is vested or sitting on the boards of cannabis companies. We have retired DEA, FBI, Alphabet Soup over here. There's legitimately businesses run by former police officers who were narcotics task force. So those people, especially with the Steve Boner in particular, it's like, it pisses me off so bad when it's like you had all the time in the world and all the power to actually make an effectual change. You didn't. You actually worked against it. And then within a few years of retiring, you are now directly profiting from it. That hurts a little bit. I feel the same way about celebrities endorsements, because again, we do have legal markets here and we have so many celebrities. Now, okay, somebody like Willie Nelson, you're cool, bro. You get a pass. Like Woody Harrelson, you've always talked about it. You've always been open. You've actually suffered consequences because of it. We're cool. But, DJ XYZ comes out of the freaking woods with yo, I got the hot new stuff. Get out of here with that. That's a slap in the face to all the people who did it before and to people who had to live under that fear, especially when it was illegal. You're going to jail for everything that you did. And a lot of people did go to jail. they're not seeing a penny from it. So like, come on, Mr. Hollywood actor guy, like, you suck.
Yeah, it's one thing to endorse it, but when it's those exclusive partnerships and I'm looking at Justin Bieber and Peaches and those kind of things where it's just like, I mean, granted in his latter years of his music, he did sing a bit more about drugs and he was more of an open advocate with being Canada and the law changing, him being Canadian, sorry, and the law sort of changing. But yeah, it's just one of those things that just, again, it fucks you up and you go, you've mastered your craft. You've risen to your field. And that's not a comment on his fucking music. That's not what I meant. I mean, he was successful within his field.
You're obviously a believer. We know it.
Damn it, my secret's revealed. So world traveling tours, etc. Made umpteen amounts of goddamn money. Yeah. And then gets gifted effectively. Oh, here, do this song about peaches. We'll set up this brand with, it wasn't Curaleaf or, I wrote about it in one of the blogs way back when, but I've written that much crap. I have no idea which company it was, but it was just such a odd partnership. It was, no, you're here to get them into this position so that when your partnership dissolves, they inherit the retail space. And it's the using them to break through the culture. People go, oh, I like that guy. He was in that one film in the thing. Oh, let's we'll have that on the shelf. And it's brand recognition and weaponization of nostalgia. I mean, again, love the Wu-Tang, but so many of them have been picked off into different brand connections and again, Redman, Method Man, etc. Again, you get the pass. You've earned the shit.
Yeah.
But it then should still be, and this isn't a comment on them, this is separate, but it should still then be authentic. If it's inauthentic, then look at it and it harms the legacy. Do you know what I mean? It kind of...
Money grabs are apparent, and we see that, but you got to be genuine. You got to be authentic. I love it when they, support the small businesses or they're doing something in the community with the money. Cause a lot of these people don't necessarily need the money, but you know what? Hey, you earned it. You invested to make it. So you can do whatever you want with it. But when it's not authentic, like you said, and it's funny, I reached out, there was one guy who actually was a childhood actor in like a movie that everybody in America knows. And I found out that he had a cannabis company. I was like, oh shit, I'd love to talk to that dude. Yeah. Hit him up and he actually got back to me. So I said, okay, I'd love to have you on. Here's kind of some of the questions. And it was just general questions about, like, when did you get involved? And, how long have you been growing? And, things that somebody who's been into it all their life would have answers for, or experiences for, and never heard back from them. And then I did a little more research and it was kind of one of these situations that we're talking about. I'm like, oh, damn, I thought he was like down for the cause, but it was more just, nope. But on that note, I did reach out to Hulk Hogan last week because he launched a line of joints, and I don't care if he never advocated. I would love to talk to the Hulkster.
Yeah, man. Wrestling, it's interesting. It started like with RVD, and him getting sort of fired from, got to get this right, it's WWE these days, isn't it? And yeah, then it sort of just revealed, because apparently it's been in wrestling circles for a long fucking time, because you think about it, they're on the road for 200 odd days, you're getting smashed around constantly. And so, yeah, it's a wonderful sort of use for it. And again, you can sort of sneak it around. You get access in various sort of regions, kind of the same like the steroids and everything else for a certain period. It was open secrets, as it were. But then obviously came sort of crackdowns after, I think it was the Attitude Era in the early 90s. And drugs got a bit more. And then we had that weird blip before the turn of the century where kind of everyone wanted to have the drug conversation, but didn't want to have the drug conversation. And yeah, a lot of wrestlers got caught up in various different things. And it was Rob Van Dam first, and then Ric Flair came out, has now got a company. So Rob Van Dam, I think, started with CBD and is moving into something. You got Ric Flair, you got Hulk Hogan, and then there's somebody else I was reading the other day. I can't remember who it was, but yeah, it's interesting. Like basketball, NFL, all these other kind of sports and sports stars are kind of, because again, it makes sense that they would have been using it the whole time, and it's wonderful to see that representation again, just in the hope that it's authentic, that it's not just some crap. I want there to be some Hulk flavor to it, but not it to have just been like, let's feed Hulk's career into an AI, add the word cannabis, and then invest into it. Do you know what I mean? I want there to be something like, it's slightly exciting, nostalgic, and a bit nerdy about it. That's what I want as you said, like when you get the opportunity to speak to these people, is for them to be equally as nerdy, like, this and this and this and this, and the obscure references, and to understand it, it's like it's knowing the secret handshake. You can tell it when you reach out and it's like, you're not in the club. You're not one of us. If you've put on the garb and you're speaking the words, but you ain't one of us. And it's a horrible feeling when you get that kind of rejection of an individual, and you're like, but everything you're saying is right. And it's like, how can you say these words but not believe them, not act upon them? It's heartbreaking, man.
And unfortunately, in America, they call them the Chads.
That's something I've written. That was a question.
Chads in the industry. I'm like, God dang it, man! Come on. When I was younger, it used to be Todd and Becky. Now it's Chad and Karen. So that's just unfortunate timing for me. I was just getting over the hanging Chads of like our 2001 election cycle, but it's not easy being the CHAD.
I love that you brought that up because it's snuck into my my lexicon and my common use in language. And I made a note of being like, I need to ask Chad what he feels like about being called a Chad. Because when I looked at all you've done, I'm like, you're the anti-Chad. How are you, Chad?
Thank you. Yes, thank you. I do have a couple people that have introduced me as Chad. He's a cool one though. Like, okay, I'll take it.
Nice. Again, I just love even the fact that there's those in-jokes, those living memes that we have to convey to each other, the inner workings, the history, the culture, the community, the very things that they're still criminalizing or cherry picking to profiteer from.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of hover over and go, here's a load of money, who wants the money? And grab this, don't want you. And they come back round every few years and we get fewer and fewer in numbers. And it feels like it's happened over the past 30 odd years. We were cannabis at one point. Then there was the divergence of hemp. And they're like, all the good things, as in not getting high, all the good things that cannabis can do, that's hemp. That's all hemp. That's the bad thing. And then like the Charlotte Figgies and all these other kind of stories that evolve. And then obviously that was derived from sort of hemp color bars, as it were. You then got the medicinal kind of divergence. And so we were then just left, all the industrial applications, potential commercial and industrial resources that we could create and generate from all the medicinal applications were removed, and we were just left as the druggies being like, freedom. And then they've given us this legalization bit, and they've taken the majority, and we're just an ever-decreasing group of people that still go, no, it's not enough. It's not enough until I'm as protected as every other citizen, until you recognize the subculture and group that I belong to and protect us lawfully. Accept that what we do, you do not have to like. You do not have the authority to overregulate, and you have to accept our basic right to exist and to do these things, you know?
And you shouldn't have to be put into a position to have to lie just to do something that is beneficial to your health, which is beneficial to society in many ways. You know, a healthy population is a healthy society. But they're like, yeah, no, it's fine. We've given it to you. It's like, no, you've actually kind of forced me into a position of lying for protection, which I'll take it. I'll take the protection, but I also don't feel good about being, dishonest. I wish we could just be free.
That's the thing of the honesty. I've spent the past 15 years, maybe longer, of my life being very honest with my drug use, with my doctors and various healthcare professionals, psychiatrists, etc. And they were never honest with me. It wasn't until last year I discovered that our National Health Service here in the UK, it has basically a coding system for medical conditions. And so each one has a corresponding code. Yeah. And drugs are only registered as abuse. The NHS doesn't recognize that an individual can use a drug. All use is automatically abuse. So it wasn't until I got a very friendly and amicable, much younger GP, it must be said again, as you said, that generational curve, showed me my digital record. And
wow.
they had me down as drug users. Of all anything I'd said, they were like, "Oh, 2004, this was said, 2007." And it's like, and I'd explained like, "Oh, I'm using mushrooms for this." I mean, I've done like the documentary with the BBC when I took like about microdosing LSD and that. And like I've spent a long time taking and exploring drugs for the betterment of my health and my consciousness worldview, treating trauma, dealing with neurodivergency, etc. And yeah, they code it all as abuse. And I think, again, it's another one of those things that needs to be changed until we can have that honest conversation, because every person that is like me that has had that conversation, that's all the doctors are hearing. They're not hearing that wonderful transformative experience you had in the woods with psilocybin, and you and your mates cried watching the sunset, and you've never felt more loved and connected to the fucking world. You discuss trauma with the person and connected with them in a meaningful way, and suddenly now you don't meet the criteria for generalized depression. They don't hear any of that. They hear this took class A drugs, delusional, although the other notes, they frame a narrative. They get to define who you are. You're not even allowed to do that. You're not allowed to do that religion, sexuality, gender, anything else. You're not allowed to make that presumptive stance on. But as soon as somebody does the thing with drugs, you're like, oh.
It's a huge disservice to people, because you're never going to be able to help people with a root issue because of that. Like, you're not listening to what this person is telling you. They're telling you that they're getting a benefit from this, like cannabis. And that actually leads to one of my arguments for people who don't like cannabis, who don't support it. They'd be like, I would never use it. I'm like, okay, but again, let us study it, because through cannabis, we discovered the endocannabinoid system. We've discovered other things. And you know what? You can now target that with a pill. So take your freaking pill, but let me smoke this weed, because we found it. And that's a really good argument. But back to the point, they're just codifying it as abuse. That's never going to solve the issue, because again, it doesn't get to the root cause, and you're missing something. You're not listening to what the people are telling you, because they're coding it. Okay, it made you feel better. Why did it make you feel better? Did your hair blow better in the wind, or did your arms feel lighter? Like, what was it? Did the colors just look more beautiful? Could you appreciate the trees? What was it? And then drive down that lane. It's a good industry, but when a lot of it is by the clock and just pigeonholed because you have to check a box, like the human brain, human life, we are not a box.
Yeah. 100%. It's that whole circle peg square hole thing, isn't it? Although a circle
I know what you meant.
Square hole, but you know what I mean. It's they're not defining the system and constructing it around what human behavior is. They're constructing something and trying to shove human behavior through it, and it's never going to work. Look at what they've done. I mean, even in places like Singapore are back on hanging people again for fucking what? Fucking 2.5 pounds. What's a kilo? 2.5 pounds.
Yeah, something around that.
So about 2.5 pounds. Yeah, they've just executed two guys in the past month. Both, I think one guy was for 2.2. The other one for probably less than 3. It's ridiculous. The first guy didn't even touch the shit. He had like a mobile phone that he was registered to him that he lost several years prior, and they found messages on the SIM card that was associated to this number, and because it was registered, it was the whole like. It's an insanity. So you've still got that kind of shit is still real, live, happening. And then on the other parts of the world, like I say, you've got all of this evolving. Like I said, here in the UK, that's our health service. That's the thing that reports to the government, that gives it all its information for them to make a stance on. Yet we have a private cannabis clinic system here in the UK, where 20,000+ patients pay private prescription costs and private consultation costs to get access to cannabis grown in Israel, Zimbabwe, fucking Colombia, Canada, that's then prescribed as an off-label medication. And it's having all these wonderful effects on all of these conditions. But that patient goes to that GP, and there isn't a mechanism for them to acknowledge that. There's a code that goes in their file that says they've been prescribed cannabis, But because of the way the doctors accept the system, they're not basically allowed to even acknowledge that. They've got to go by their training, and their training says all cannabis is bad. You're only prescribed it because of a special and unique circumstance. And it's
a scary position to be in. And, especially just hearing that on myself, because no, I haven't been able to look at my, my digital record and my digital file. But many years ago, I made the decision to just be completely open and honest with my regular doctor. He can't prescribe or do anything for cannabis for me, but just to be transparent, to try to maybe spark that conversation. And it has, and I think he's learned from me, and I think he's gone off and done some of his own research. But what are the consequences? Because here in America, I imagine, as it will be there too, those type of things, insurance companies have access to these things. Insurance companies set premiums based on certain factors. Now, because I've been honest with my cannabis use, am I paying more for my life insurance? Am I paying more for my actual health insurance? Those are the things that we don't necessarily have the answer to, even though we have a track record of those types of things happening, which I think is the deterrent for many people from being open and honest. But you need to. And so, many years ago, I made that decision, like yourself, just be like, look, they're not going to get the conversation or the education from somewhere else. I'm going to give them the opportunity. If they want to take it, I would love it. Yeah. Not all of them do.
Well, you're still going to be an earworm in the rear for a little bit while you're in that appointment anyway, and they get to see, wait a minute, this guy, he keeps telling me he's not mental, he hasn't died, he's in really good health, but the drugs, he keeps taking drugs, why hasn't he died? And it's that lived experience of, you might be the first person they've ever met that does X, Y, Z, and it just helps to erode that stigma and that ignorance. And I think we're lucky here in the UK currently that they don't kind of correlate. Those data sets exist, but they're not contingent on each other because of the health service being nationalized. But it very much feels, my fear is the medicinal cannabis, or as I call the medical cannabis industrial complex here in the UK, is being used partially as a vessel to dismantle the NHS. Because it's the NHS is the biggest prescriber of opioid medications. Our pain management groups and various other organizations and authorizing bodies, same with quite a few of the federal ones in America, are kind of trying to reevaluate how they prescribe opioids, the advice to doctors to when to prescribe. The pain is obviously still therefore going to remain. So if you take out opioids, we put in cannabinoids. I think that's where the big pharma chain plan is, because as you say, that we're working on patents for extraction, for various novel combinations of things, and they can then create these drugs. Like same with, I think Epidiolex is now Schedule 5 under the FDA regulation federally in America. They snuck that in fast. It got at the height of COVID, everything was kicking off in the world, but they suddenly got it in, and I think it went in at 2, 3, something like that, and then it was announced a month later, if that, 5, so it could then be chucked over the top of pharmacy counters. And that's where I feel like their goals are, is my, again, big tinfoil hat moment, is they want to get rid of the idea of us knowing what the plant is, in the same way that most people couldn't think where, I don't think of a plant now, what a sugarcane looks like, or a coffee bean, or what a plant, you know what I mean? Right. They're so disconnected from it. They know the end product, but they wouldn't know the thing enough to even have the inclination to grow it. That's what I feel the longest term plan of industry, or hope of industry, is to get enough of all these boring hippies that already know how to grow. They'll die out eventually. And as long as we can keep them quiet and out of the way enough and don't let them do enough, then everyone will just go to the McDonald's of weed. The kids growing up now are growing up with vape carts, disposable vape carts. I grew up with really poor quality, third-hand hash. Do you know what I mean? It was repressed, plastic and rubber in it. And it'd be terrible stuff that we got up here. Because most of it arrived in lower ports and it'd work its way up the country. And it's the same with anything. The grades just got lower and lower, and then people would mix it up, and you'd end up stinking of petrol because of the way people would smuggle them in tankers, and it would get into the products, and it was a bad time. It was a bad time to to be consuming. But yeah, the kids these days, I'm getting old. They've got such a plethora of access of products that why would you almost want to grow it? If you've got money and whatever and you don't have the space, why would you have the inclination to have, oh, so much hassle, I've got to buy the equipment, I've got to learn this, da-da-da.
Oh, yeah.
It's all available. So I think there's part of it is being banked on that there'll always be like the same with alcohol, the home brewers, that they kind of leave alone. You're like, yeah, you're allowed to do up to a certain amount. That's never going to threaten Budweiser or another beer. I suppose that's quite a contentious beer in America right now. But it's not really going to threaten those industries. I just want cannabis to get there, really. But it does feel like, yeah, the end game of this is the people like you and I knowing what we know about this plant, our days being numbered.
You are onto something. And, that could be brought on through just breeding efforts, femmes, autoflowers. They're working on polyploids that, you can't get them pregnant. So there's no way to reproduce your own seeds. That's one avenue. But, it's the consumer habits. And you're absolutely right. Every time, I see those darn kids, kids that are too young to have these products, it's always a vape pen. And I don't know if it's just American culture. We always want bigger, badder, better. So concentrates, dabs, that's really where a lot of the young attention is. And particularly if that's your style of, consumption, you're going to have to grow a ton of plants just to get a meaningful supply of your concentrates, your dabs, and all that jazz. But I also see, in like the Netherlands, when I go there, everybody mixes with their flower because the flower is too potent. So I don't necessarily think like the concentrates will take off there as much. Mm-hmm. There will always be, small sectors of everything, but at least here in the States, people are moving away from flower. So I bet there are probably people, in their mid-20s now who 90% of their consumption has been something other than flower. And I'm a flower guy. Like that's like where my heart is, flower power. And it breaks my heart sometimes. I remember had a friend came over, he does some pressure washing. He's got the business. So he pressure washed the roof, paid him, what he should be paid, gave him a little tip. And I brought out a jar of my best buds. And I was like, dude, I want you to have these, go home. You worked hard today, enjoy. He's like, oh, I don't smoke flower anymore, but I'll smash it when I get home. And my heart just like dropped. I was like, I almost like if I didn't know him, my hand would have like grabbed that jar back. I stopped from grabbing the jar back, but there's so many people today that have no interest in smoking flower. And those are the people that I never give my flower to test, because if you're looking for potency and somebody only smokes dabs, how are they're not going to be able to subjectively rate the potency of your flower.
It's the identifiability of it. If you know cannabis, you spend enough time around it, you can be led by your senses. You smell it, you see it, yes. you just, there's something about it. You can walk in. This is what I really appreciate about the American dispensary model. So in some of the states were really cool. Literally, places, one of them I went in extra early and they're just giving us giant bags from our bag. We're like, hey, look at this. And they're just showing off. But most of the places you can smell it again, you go, no. And before you'd even like, I'd try not to like read too much into the name sort of thing. I'll ask you a few basic leading questions. And then, you can try and be led by your nose. But the extracts, you can look at clarity and viscosity and but it's too far removed from me. Whereas, again, I would have had a similar moment as a grower of like, because you're not just showing them the smell or the potency. This is my love. This is the culmination of what I've learned. I've sacrificed. I've suffered. I've had sleepless nights over. The fans have dropped out. I've had a power cut or whatever. All those horrible things. You hear a helicopter. You hear a siren. All the things that go into this. But then somebody to not appreciate it in that way. Yeah, I feel you. I completely feel you, man. So we need to educate these damn kids on the flower.
Yeah. And with, the concentrates and stuff too, you can make it very terpy if you want, because a lot of that is just recombined. It's been stripped apart and then it gets recombined, which a lot of people like myself, I believe in, the full flower medicine, full spectrum effects, and even to the vaping, which we were talking about earlier, how it's not the same effect. It's because it's still missing. It's not getting everything that a combusted flower would. So it's supposed to be getting a lot of the good things. And we do know that, and we can show that, vapor is better than smoke in this instance, but we're still missing something and we don't fully understand what it is. So again, another area we need to figure it out.
100%. That is research I would back the support of it entirely, because I hate this argument that comes from, well, smoking anything is bad. And yeah, breathing combusted carbonous material, not good. But we also understand that there are various constituents of cannabis that have anti-canceral properties, that cannabis acts as a bronchial dilator. There are various minor cannabinoids that act as protectants for the lining of the lungs. It's response in terms of the way that the heart tachycardia responses, it helps with the flow of the system. There are various different things that show that there's something going on there, and a lot of the studies that they throw into it are just tobacco studies, and they just erase tobacco. Effectively, they're not looking at these studies. Or we do an American versus European study, and you go, for all you have backwoods and whatever else, a lot of the you Yanks, you wash your backwoods, so you're still getting a reduction. There's still obviously nicotine and whatever else present in it. Whereas the European, they're mixing, 75% of Europeans mix their joints with tobacco. And so then they do the studies and they'll not account for these things. And they'll go, well, this data doesn't match the real world samples, or this versus another country or whatever. And they're not controlling for these variables.
That's such a big variable. That in itself would delegitimize anything in that study. It's how could you not pay attention to the most popular consumption method? You can't get a representation of the population. God, those rhyme. Representation of the population without understanding that. It's skewed data. Again, cherry picking the results you want it to have.
Yeah, 100%. It's almost like the systems that govern our daily lives that have been effective over hundreds of years, effectively at this point. They've got so good at this. They really have. It's a fun time to be human. This was what some people term as late stage capitalism, and well, you look around the world, it does feel very late stage, doesn't it? Yeah. Let's do a couple of quick fires, because I'm aware that I've kept you quite a while already. We've covered some good ground, but I just want to get through some of these questions. So, you're a fellow podcaster. Here's some cliched questions for you. Favorite guest so far that you've interviewed?
Probably Tommy Chong, just because it made my wife's day. And again, it's pretty iconic person to talk to as far as influencing factors in my life. That was probably it. Just again, my wife grew up with the records, with the comedies, seeing the Cheech and Chong, every single freaking movie, all of this, and I managed to keep it a secret and didn't announce it, didn't do anything. And he was on, it's we had kind of gone through the interview. I was just, getting towards the end of the time. And I was like, hey man, would you mind if I called my wife in here? Cause she'd love to say hello. It's sure. So yeah, he totally played along with it. He was a true gentleman. He said, how you doing? What's your name? And yeah, that was a pretty cool moment.
Nice. Yeah. Same. I think for having Tommy on he's the only guest I think that at the start I had a real, oh crap, I'm interviewing kind of thing. He just appeared and I was like, because I kind of grew up in a later generation. I think my first, because I got into drugs early, but I didn't get into drug culture till later. I didn't realize all these other people were doing this thing. I was so hiding and running around. But I got exposed to him in that 70s show.
Nice.
And it was
Love
just
that.
yeah, and so then when he kind of came on the screen, and it was just I was kind of lost in it. It was like sat with the joint, and it's kind of like almost like being back watching reruns of that in my late teens. And he's just on screen. It's yeah, you're right, kind of thing. It's cool that he's such a open and easy guy. Do you know what I mean? He's just like, I'll chat. What do you want? What do you talk about? What do you want to do? He's just so well versed within the sector and space, and he's got so many fucking unique and hilarious stories to tell.
You never know what's going to come out of his mouth. And like, I'm glad that he's done so many interviews over these last few years. I've learned a lot about him. Like, I honestly did not know about a lot of his involvement with Motown. And he was actually one of the guests on the Dope History podcast. And that was, again, just kind of getting that life story. And I do a lot of the editing for that. So you get this much audio and you got to put it down to this much. So listening to it a lot, really cool story. But yeah, you never quite know what's going to come out, but it's always going to be pretty entertaining. That 70s show, funny to make a full circle here. That state that I mentioned I'm going to, that it's still illegal. I'm going to Wausau, Wisconsin. So it's like basically right where the 70s show is fictionally set. So that's irony for you. I do enjoy that show, though.
It's interesting. They're doing, I don't know if they released it. Was it that 90s show? Have they released it? Or is it still being done? I know he's reprised his role in that, hasn't he?
They did. They released it. We watched the first 2 episodes, and then I forgot that it's still on. So hopefully it didn't just go like a few episodes and then it got canceled. There's a writer's strike now, so who knows with everything. Yeah. But you're right. They made a big deal, and we watched the first couple and we're like, okay, it's an acceptable remake. We look forward to watching more of it. And then I think we went to the Netherlands, and yeah, we just forgot about it till you just mentioned it. So thank you.
Nice. I'm gonna meaning to check it out, because I was thinking it'd be interesting because they've evolved. Obviously, the 90s was not necessarily the best for cannabis in certain parts of the world. Obviously, they're going to represent it from the same sort of region, which I think not really much has changed from where it is sort of now. But more the producers and kind of the climate in which it's produced and the way they portray it. Because the joke of that 70s show is obviously the structure around the table and them getting high but not getting high, and nobody mentions it, but you know, but you don't know. And kind of how the modern sensibilities and kind of approach would be put into this sort of decades later. So I think, yeah, I reminded myself of it when I went to mention it there. So I've made a note to check that out over the weekend. I love it when that happens. I do love when that happens. Next cliched question then. Dead or alive? You're coming with me. It's Robocop, isn't it? Dead or alive? I've structured this so badly as a question. Ideal guest, dead or alive? Every time I say it in my brain, I couldn't stop hearing the Robocop thing.
You've got 5 seconds now. So dead or alive? I think I would still probably stick with like Martin Luther King Jr. Just to hear some of his thoughts, some of his philosophies. Interesting life, and yeah, that would probably be the one, and we'd have some good philosophical conversations.
Yeah, but
probably not a stoner though, so it doesn't necessarily apply. Like, I'd be surprised if he smoked, but
I reckon he would understand cannabis, as it were.
Yeah, I would hope so. And I mean, growing up, he's on the stamps here. We have a day dedicated to him. He's obviously an important freaking figure. And those figures tend to get painted in the best lights. You don't necessarily hear about some of their other sides. And, as I learned more about him and his life, and there was this thing called COINTELPRO. It was basically like a disinformation smear campaign against a lot of the leaders at that time. And, he was caught up into it too. But, he wasn't a saint. So that's not, necessarily why. I'm just like, that's my answer. He had some pretty profound thoughts, and a lot of it dealt with obviously race, but kind of towards the end of his life, more so on economic class. And, or, you know, that type of whole system, and how we're, you know, it's a very discriminatory, rigged system. And I, you know, grew up decent, but I also moved out when I was 16. I was on my own. I was very poor. And there was a lot of society that I saw working against me for no good reason. And I'm supposed to have white privilege, and I probably do. God, I didn't piss anybody off there. But at the same time, I witnessed how that is a big problem, and it doesn't just go by race. Like, we need to do better as a whole for like humanity, and just working together. If we could find a way to do something like that, and at least appreciate and understand the fact, it's like, the better we do together, the better we do together. Why don't we work towards this? So that would be the conversation I'd probably have with them. And I'd smoke a joint the whole time. So he can F off if he doesn't like it.
Well, that's it. That's my general podcast rule, is that to everyone, I've had sitting politicians and former cops and all sorts on, and I'm like, just, you know, this is the rules. If you're on the platform, this is how I'm operating. You're not in the same room. You can't get high. You're not going to get in trouble. But yeah, again, like, to meet the human behind the myth, because people get venerated and get put on these pedestals, and over time it gets polished, as you say, until there is but the story, the man, the human, the woman, the person, the individual. It gets lost to it. And I think, even the economics one, he spoke of something that at the time, obviously, his narrative really struck because of the racial divide, but he also spoke, as you said, of the class divides that exist within this. He recognized that it wasn't black versus white, that he understood that that was bridge one to cross, as it were. And there was many more to come, and that he was trying to unify his community and to the nation, really, and the world was really paying attention. So a lot of people really tried to see what was being expressed here. And it was the powerful versus the powerless. Yeah, and it was, these narratives really started to manifest into sort of the events that were happening around the time. I mean, it's in that fucking the Rage Against the Machine song, fucking Wake Up. What is it, Zach Roach said? They didn't kill King until he spoke out in Vietnam. And it was until he spoke of war and the apparatus of the power and how it works collectively, not just on the oppression of the black man and the black population, but of the working class, and how that aberration is formed around the world. Once you spoke of American imperialism, real fucking problematic. Same happened with Malcolm X. You know what I mean? It's good when they're like, oh, they're unifying these people over here. This is happening there, and obviously had an incredible amount going on in American subculture and diverse areas across the country at the time. But it was all about, the groups were all seeking to find the same thing. A name to call the enemy.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Whether it was the man, the state, now the deep state, you know, the whatever, however we term it, whatever it is, it's the manifestation of the intersection of wealth and power. That's the enemy. The people that camp and live and build their life on that don't pass through that intersection and are gifted that wealth. You spoke of privilege before. That we all have privilege for different areas in different ways, but it's all spectral and it's fluctuating. And so it's not a universal rule. These are not indicators, nor should they ever be.
Right.
But they indoctrinate us into thinking in that way, so that we don't challenge that hegemony. We don't even, again, look to name that. We don't look to another group that we've got. They're in a different box. We're in our box, and we're not allowed to look at their box. They've broke it down, whereas at that time, these radical conversations were happening. And so I agree, it would be wonderful to see that, for him to run through live time the information and everything of the reality. Obviously, to have a lot of years to catch up on, but to have his opinions and whatever else of reality as they are. Because I mean, shit. I think if there's Malcolm X, there's MLK, there's fucking Bill Hicks, and there's somebody else. If all these people have died sort of prematurely, I swear we're in multi-dimension 75 over. We're in such a better construct of humanity because of these individuals, because they could see further. And not only that, they could connect with everybody. They could say something and everyone would look at it and go, oh, fuck. Oh, shit. And even if you hated the person or you had the prejudice, you had whatever, you would still hear the truth. And I think that's, but it's not, I'm not saying Bill Hicks was killed, but I think that's definitely why they were killed by the state. I don't even think we have to say allegedly these days anymore, do we?
Right. But no, I mean, Malcolm X was another person that, I read a lot about. Very similar era, similar time, different approach. But, the ballot or the bullet, that speech is just like, damn, because you do inevitably in life, you have to kind of pick a path of like your approach to fighting whatever you deem as an injustice, whatever you deem as not right. You got to pick an approach, and both things can be effective, but long term that's up to you to decide. But they're both focused on the right thing, and they're both fighting for the right thing, and then you just get to look at different methods of achieving it. So yeah, another great person to have a conversation with. He came up, but I don't know. I would go with MLK.
Yeah, again, just these are the kind of the stature of individuals that I fear that my generation doesn't have. I'm 35 soon. I was just checking 1 month in. I was like, I missed my birthday. I don't really celebrate it, so I might have missed it. You know what I mean? So I feel my generation, we don't have that because of how powerful the assembly line of capitalist advertising and again the end points of all of this converging throughout the 20th century, all the practicing of it. As soon as the technology was there, we've got these little dopamine fucking boxes that are hijacking us every fucking to different reality, complete different reality. So yeah, to be able to connect with these people and have it's a blessing and a curse, really. So we could sit lifetime and have this conversation, but it's I still don't feel we're having we can't reach those levels anymore. You can't arise an MLK in any collective group because if they observed all of that and went, oh, never again. Changed all the rules, all the laws. Arguably, the war on drugs was a response to this. If you look at the John Ehrlichman quote. Nixon's advisor on the war on drugs when he was talking about, vilifying groups and breaking up their meetings and arresting their leaders for drugs charges. Yeah, it's we're at the end point, I feel, of that. And so this legalization, I think we almost need to wait for that bubble to pop. We need like the .com bubble, like any housing bubble in the country or whatever. It feels like that needs to crash for them lot to come back to reality and go, oh, we can't all be billionaires in cannabis. The actual consumers, they've been trying to tell us something. All right, guys, what is it? We're doing it wrong. All right, cool. What do we need to do? All right, cool. Then we can move forward, but we don't have that. They're so away with the fairies. It's like a lot of, it's the high-end scientists as well, and they're like, oh, we're talking about Mars and da-da-da, and it's like, the people are dying. Half the world can't access clean water. Half the world can't access food. El Nino's just kicked off. We're going to have the hottest year in history next year. And y'all are talking about fucking terraforming the planet. It's not realistic. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Up until last year, the two richest men on the planet were competing to send a dick-shaped rocket into space. That's pretty much their big endeavor, their gift to the Earth. But again, it's like, it's their money, whatever, but they could do so much good. And you know what? Again, if everybody's doing better, everybody will do better. So just like, spread, do something with it other than trying to, I don't know, send yourself to space. But yeah. that's a whole nother topic for another time. But
it brings me on to one of my final questions, though, because it's something I said I wanted to discuss in the preamble on the topic of space. If you don't mind entertaining me for another 5-10 minutes here.
Absolutely.
UFOs. What the hell is going on with you guys? That's not you personally, but in America, there's been so much stuff come out in the past week or so, a couple of weeks. of like, obviously they're not official government disclosures, but you know, the guy doing the rounds claiming to have, you know, a super uber high secret Delta clearance Magoo, saying that there's a dozen spaceships, there's logically there must be bodies and all of this stuff. And I just wanted to get your opinion on it, because you're the first and probably last American I'm going to get to speak to for the next sort of few weeks on the podcast, and this story will get replaced by some other insanity. So while we're in it, thoughts?
I'm totally for the little green man, and there may be gray ones, but no, I'm totally for him. Here's the thing, though, with this is, and you've probably seen the T-shirts. It's like, I believe, or like, I want to believe, and it's just
I want to believe on the wall. I'm a big X-Files fan.
There you go. But that is the truth. So it's like there are enough people who are waiting to hear this because they want to believe that my, like, they're telling you to look this way when you should look this way brain is in like high alarm. It's like when something like this comes out, I'm always like, what are they distracting from? Because we all pretty much have an opinion on this. A lot of people agree that there is the potential for something like this. We just don't have that confirmation. It's like there's so much anecdotal evidence out there that, yeah, absolutely. Now, is this person like not distracting us and actually trying to like aid that community and like help and give them information? That's a good question. I don't know. It's hard.
Yeah, man. I think I mentioned before we started recording, I thought I heard about it a couple of days passed, and then I saw the guy doing a different interview, and I was like, oh, it's a lie. The guy's not dead, as we've just spoke of. Like, exactly. The US has got a pretty good track record of silencing with good immediacy. Wait, saying that they did spend, the CIA spent, what was it, 200 plus? No, I think that number's even lower. 200 plus attempts to kill Fidel Castro.
Oh gosh, yeah, I've read some of the attempt. Oh my good lord,
insanity. But yeah, when they outsource it to patsies, I think the patsies do a pretty good job generally. But yeah, the fact this guy's still going around and it's getting more attention, like you said, it's not serious, but it's a pageantry. It's a veil, or it's the shiny keys. Look at the keys. Look at the keys. Who are the keys? And we're all just, what are they sneaking away? What are they doing on the other side of it? And the fact that then other governments and now or other media entities in other countries are starting to comment on it, it's like, so y'all jumping on this bandwagon, what are you guys doing? And then is this opportunism? The Americans just kind of go, well, we're going to do this quick thing and then we'll do this. Or is this a coordinated thing? And then it begs the question again, tinfoil hat, what is currently starting to occur around the world that is exceptionally contentious and controversial that could potentially lead to the criminalization of some very high up individuals? COVID inquiries. They're starting to, in the UK right now, our government set up an inquiry to look into COVID and how the MPs handled it. And then what our Prime Minister has just done is taking that inquiry to court to stop them getting access to the previous Prime Minister's notebooks and emails and WhatsApps and all of the government data that shows what the fuck they were doing. Because we lost billions in dodgy government contracts, hundreds of billions of pounds, disappeared because somebody texts the health minister at 11 o'clock at night and goes, oh, I've just set up a PPE company. Can I get a contract? And gets 50 million quid. And so that happened everywhere around the world. All of that corruption and shit. And enough of the government, some places, they're having to at least have a token gesture of saying, oh, yeah, we did this, like the Warren Commission after Kennedy. You know what I mean? It's a token gesture that they're having to go through. But in doing so, they have to create certain disclosure. Then they can put them as secret acts or whatever, sign them away for 30 years. And then by that time, that generation's forgot about it, as they do with everything else. But that's what I think it is, personally, is we're then lost over here. And I've got COVID, oh, that was years ago. Aliens now, aliens. And we just, because even if it's not, it's such a, I guess, I don't know if romantic's the right word for it, but this idea of like distant, knowledgeable creatures outside of us, the idea of paternal, like a parental thing out there, something that's smarter that can come and cradle us and go, you silly humans, what have you done? What have you done? Here's free 0 point energy. Here's this. Here's that. We'll take this away. And that's what I was saying with those scientist guys and these irrational realists, as it were. They're going, well, here's the thing. I think they call them accelerationists. They're just like, we'll just get through everything because eventually we'll arrive at that point where the technology fixes all the problems. So the end is just by the means. As long as we get to the point of the technology fixing it, it's the same wishful thinking as the aliens, I feel. And I can't help but entertain it as well. Do you know what I mean? It's the idea of, well, what if someone just landed and gave us everything? Not in terms of like the technology, but the answers. And they went, God, oh, dudes, we figured that out time ago. Here's the thing. Got meaning in life. Oh, yeah, we did this thing. The idea that something could have those answers, these unanswerable questions, and to them it would just be 2 + 2 is 4. That is so attractive to me. That is so alluring, the idea of a knowledge beyond human creativity, something that, I mean, fuck, we're stupid. We wouldn't believe it anyway. They turn up and go, you're wrong, guys.
But that's us kind of superimposing almost, or projecting what we want for ourselves onto another society. It's like we want to be those enlightened, educated, like knowing and loving people, but we don't honestly work for it in a meaningful way. So there is a little bit of romanticism about that because they're so technologically advanced that they have to be peaceful. But honestly, I kind of picture it going a little more like Mars Attacks.
Yeah. What a fucking movie. What a movie. Yeah. I suppose that's the Fermi paradox?
Somebody's going to let up a dove and it's going to break loose, man.
Yeah, the Martian symbol for war, white dove. Yeah, it's crazy. Then comes the thing of, I was discussing this with a mate the other day. We were really high, and we're trying to smash all of we're in like the top 50 of quite a lot of the Tony Hawk Pro Skater speedrun records. And we just smash them out every time we get really high and just talk about really stupid shit. And I said to him the other day, if a lion could speak English, you couldn't understand him. And he went, what? And I went, if we taught a lion English, its concepts and its construct of its consciousness and its interpretation of reality means it may be able to use English, but you would not be able to understand it. It would chew, roar, run, bruh. We couldn't train it to formulate sentences to then, we don't even know if it would then have a philosophical or ethical insight as an individual. Would it then be oh, thank God I can finally speak? I've been trying to speak to you guys for ages. Like, will aliens look at us like we're that? Are we the lion or are we the human in that scenario? Like, if the aliens turn up, that's the thing that worries me. Is like they're gonna, like, when we find an anthill and you go, oh fuck, ants, and people will stamp them or whatever. Do you know what I mean? What if aliens trip over us and they look and go, the hell is this? They're making metal infestation. Again, there's so many other things. Again, that's that answer to that Fermi paradox of, if there is so much space and so much time, an infinite timeline, infinite space, that there has to then be other intelligent life.
Right. Yeah.
What if the life looks at us as an infestation? What if it's literally like, that planet's got cockroaches? Leave that one alone.
It's certainly possible. And honestly, were there to be, let's just say there is, intelligent life out there capable of traveling through, universe, it definitely will be able to detect our presence before it gets near. And it would probably want to, like scout or at least see what's going on before just like coming down for a trip in the Grand Canyon, Mm-hmm. I don't know what they would think of us, quite honestly. Who knows? We could be just ants in a sandbox. Quite honest, we could be entertained. We could be reality TV. Damn it, we don't even know.
Well, that's the zoo hypothesis. That's the reason we haven't been contacted. Is that Earth was created as a zoo and we're being observed and studied, and that they're like blocking off the boundaries. And it's the same as like trying to think of an animal that doesn't know it's confined, but most of them fucking do. So it doesn't really work in this thing.
Goldfish.
Yeah, fish. There's something like where it's literally, it doesn't quite understand its confinement, so it doesn't understand the reality beyond its own existence. Mm-hmm. And so it can't interpret beyond water because it doesn't know what water is. So outside air, what's air? That's the similar sort of argument that's made there. I think, it's a fascinating sort of concept and idea of, and I think you bang on with that projection, especially I think as white Westerners. Europeans or former European colonies, we kind of go, well, what did we do when we discovered new man on the world? How did we read? Do you know what I mean?
Don't ask.
I think that's why we're projecting that of kind of going to. So that's where you get that militaristic response of going, well, the reason we're investing all this money in a deep space radar and da-da-da is in case Independence Day. And it's like, well, you're also kind of preparing for that. So you're increasing the chance of that being the outcome. And it's not then obviously the Lao Tzu thing of it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener at war, sort of thing. So preparing is good, but you've also not going to narrow yourself into that mindset. We've got to go, statistically speaking, as a likelihood of probability, there is something else out there. I mean, it's anything else is better to entertain the concept that we are the only things, because if this is the height of life in everything, I love us, we're all right, we're pretty cool, but fuck me, everything needs to do better. That to me proves there isn't a God, because if we're the best it can do, yeah.
I just want to know how they built the pyramids. That's all.
Oh, it's the wet sand is the closest thing I think I've. There's a few people that have kind of perpetuated the idea that if it's that wet and then you put the center block on, and if you can move the mass and build it up, and there's a few different concepts of ideas. Then you've got people talking about like you can tell I watch a lot of documentaries and read a lot of stupid shit. People talk about like sound resonance and various other things, and then obviously you've got like ancient aliens kind of thing of.
Which was funny because as much as I believe in aliens and I love like ancient Egypt and stuff, I never in my brain ever connected aliens visiting us in ancient times until that show. I was like, oh. No, I do not think it was built by aliens, but that concept, I never thought about the implications of what that could have or would have been. I'm like, oh, interesting. But yeah, so after I get done watching the 90s show tonight, I'll flip over to YouTube and go to the wet sand theory. see what I think.
Check it out. Yeah, sweet. Yeah, we'll wrap up. I'll ask you my last cliche question, which is the final question I ask everybody, because I'm quite aware of the time, and it's just as a good excuse to get you back on in the future, Chad, because I think we could shoot the shit on quite a lot of topics. It is quite evident.
Easy conversation for sure.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's what I like about these podcasts, because when they go good, they go real good. Because it's like you said, it was. I don't know if we were talking about it in the preamble or on the recording. If it's the dealer's living room, that's what we're all replicating with these podcasts and these shows and these different projects of ours. It's trying to look at other people. This is our cult. Look, this is it. We talk about aliens and shit, and time travel, and somebody goes. Have you ever considered, and everyone's there for 5 hours debating whatever insanity it is, and people long forget they came to buy weed or whatever, and they go, oh crap, give me that 20, I was at work 2 hours ago, I gotta go. You know, it's that is what it is. It's insight, curiosity, it's like letting loose that inner child, but the matured inner child that can just be. It's the toddler going, why? With other toddlers that also have information and access to the internet. That makes that the perfect combination. But again, that's that danger that they don't like. We all talk together. We start going, wait a minute, you're getting fucked by the same system as well. You as well. You know, there's more of us than them.
Feed cut.
Yeah. That's what they're terrified of. And whether it's us doing this over thousands of miles across the world or side by side in living rooms and in dorm rooms or whatever across the world, we find each other, we connect, we have these conversations, we find our commonality in our humanity, and we fucking celebrate it. And that's a beautiful thing, man. That's a beautiful thing.
Well said, dude. Well said. I like that.
Well, thank you. So yeah, we'll quickly jump on to the last question, and then I'll let you go off, because I also need to get some sleep because it's getting bloody late. The last question is, what does the future hold for you? Future reappearing on the podcast.
Yes, totally. Well, I may figure out how the pyramids were built. but that's probably the distant future. Immediate future, just doing some podcasts, usually, YouTube's. I like to focus a lot on like home grows and trying to get people grow, because again, get them growing anyway, just get them growing, and then we can take you further. But the more people grow, the more chance we stand to be educated. Or, if, your neighbor Sally is making these awesome roll-on topicals, and, your other neighbor Dawn has a bad knee, and she shares it with him, even though he was a retired cop for 40 years. And he's like, this stuff helps. That's how we're going to overcome. Education is good, but seeing is believing for a lot of these people. So helping people grow on doing more shows, on my channel, Chad Westport on YouTube, and also just doing more writing work, which also I'm kind of transitioning into some more official video tutorial type stuff, which will be exciting because I'm an audio engineer by trade. I can make and edit videos at a good enough level now, but because of these upcoming projects, I really want to kind of invest and get some like better equipment, learn some new techniques, get to geek out on stuff. So that's what's upcoming for me. And then hopefully everybody else will benefit from, 30 hours of work for a 30-second clip. We'll see.
Nice. And that's what we need, unfortunately, with the shorter attention spans for all we do, these long form podcasts and whatever, to get the people that don't realize the cannabis nerds yet, the non-converted or the yet to be converted, need to throw out our fishing lines and pull them in with that polished content. So I wish you the best with that, man. And I think, educate. I hate it because it's a fucking Tony Blair quote, our warmonger prime minister from a few years ago. Education. But it's fucking right. It is. It's what's going to change this shit. Is the more informed we are, the more aware we are, the more likely we are to fight for a better reality. Or to accept, that our reality doesn't have to be the reality or isn't the reality. Do you know what I mean? That you and I can come to a wonderful agreement. It's the Voltaire thing of, I'll disagree with you, but I will, fight to the death to defend your right for you to say what I'm disagreeing with. That's where we need to be again.
Yep. Absolutely. Not so separated, not so stuck in our ways, and this ability to agree to disagree. I agree with that 100%. That is something that we've absolutely, or I feel a lot of people have lost. We're very tribal, which means we have to take a position and die for it when things can be flexible.
Yeah, we're stuck in those little boxes we spoke of. So let's all smash out of these containers we've been placed in, realize where we are, get our bearings, and move forward to greener pastures. Yeah, I like it. All right, it has been a pleasure, Chad. Where can my listeners and audience keep up with you?
Probably the best place is chad.westport on Instagram. I do have the website, but that needs updating. I have found out that all of my tabs have reverted back to the stock text and images. So not being a web wizard, but chadwestport.com. That'll be up. Looking for that here soon in the next couple of months. And then, just the Instagram and my YouTube page, Chad Westport, YouTube, chad.westport on Instagram. Keep up with me there. Thank you for having me on today. And thank you for this conversation. It was an absolute pleasure. And I do look forward to a part 2. We hadn't even covered half of the things we talked about earlier, and we could go on for much longer. So I applaud your passion, man. And I applaud what you're doing and the, mental capacity that you have devoted to this and to getting the word out. So thank you.
Oh, man. Thank you. I appreciate it. I didn't expect to get thanked by a guest. No, so that's lush. I appreciate that, Chad. And definitely we'll get a part 2 in the books because there's much to cover. But I'll let you get off and get on with your day. And it's been a real privilege. I'll drop you a copy of this as it's available. And we'll try again soon.
Cool. All right. Good times.
All right. Talk to you
later.
All right.
Bye.
Peace, love. Bye. Well, there you go, folks. That was Chad Westport. If we could swap every Chad that we have in the industry with that, Chad, I think we'll get somewhere. That was cool. That was cool. I thoroughly enjoyed that conversation. And I think we covered some amazing topics. Looking at my notes, we barely covered any of the things that I actually wanted to. I don't even think we discussed about any of Chad's sort of professional work. I really wanted to talk about him being a staff writer at Sensi Seeds, a role I would like to take at one point. Not take it from him. That's not what I'm saying. But I would very much like to write for Sensi Seeds one day. I don't know if you fine folks are out there listening, but I'm interested. Yeah, would love to have known more again. Sort of his role on Dope History Podcast. I think brilliant podcast. Include the links below. Same with Future Cannabis Project. Check that out as well. And yeah, so the new Twin Peaks company as well. There's a lot that we didn't get around to because we wanted to talk about aliens and politics and how the pyramids were built and crazy shit. It's good. It's, as we said, it's a good representation, I feel, of that cannabis culture experience. That's what we're kind of going for here. I'm not necessarily a cannabis podcast. It's a very cannabis heavy episode, but generally we talk about human rights and the human experience, really. And yeah, drugs are a big part of that because they're a big part of my human experience. And this is the Simpa Life, and this is my life. My life on drugs, apparently. But yeah, allegedly. So yeah, don't forget, if you liked this little podcast episode, do give us a like, share, and do give us a subscribe if you are on YouTube, or a rating, wherever you are, on whatever platform you are enjoying this podcast on. So yeah, check us out on all social media platforms at The Simpa Life. Check out thesimpalife.com for exclusive blogs, articles, other content. Check out patreon.com/thesimpalife. For less than a couple of quid a month, you can help us keep the lights on this little project of mine. And yeah, be good to each other. Stay hydrated, stay in the shade. And yeah, watch out for this heat wave. We're back next week with somebody. Be great. And yeah, I'll try not to keep you 3 hours. All right. Peace and love, folks. See you next week. It is so smoky in here. It's unbelievable. Oh, my days. Oh, can't even see where the camera is. Oh.